All right, I want to touch on the Texans potentially hiring another coach. And one of the things that I'm hearing the most, and you hear it from a lot of people, you hear it from some national media types, you hear it from some listeners, you hear it on the internet, and I think it's pretty ridiculous, quite honestly. I think it's either silly, I think it's ill-informed, or I think it's selectively dumb. And I'm talking about the notion that, no GM gets to hire, 3 head coaches in 3 years. And I've been critical of Nick Caserio a lot. I've been very critical of Nick Caserio. I do think he inherited a bad situation. I think he handled the Watson situation well, but I mean, sometimes he comes across as tone deaf. Sometimes he comes across as kind of a BSer, Easterby-like. Sometimes he makes references I don't like. He's done some silly things. Not overly costly, but he's done some silly things. The Marcus Cannon thing, the Rex Burkhead thing. He's done some goofy things. But the one thing I don't understand is the notion that, no GM gets to hire 3 head coaches in 3 years. That might be true. That could be factually true. I know San Francisco had 3 coaches in 3 years, but they brought in John Lynch and it was a different GM and all that type of stuff. But if you're going to say that, shouldn't you at least be able to give me like one example of a similar situation that a GM inherited? Because I don't think you can. Like if you look at these last 2 coaching searches, when they hired David Culley, they had, and a lot of this is Cal's fault. So Cal deserves a lot of blame for this as well. You can't fire owners. And I think Cal is at least kind of starting to figure stuff out a little bit. But you had the Deshaun Watson sexual allegations. So the thing that you thought was the number one asset, you lost as soon as you hired Nick Caserio. I remember it was January. Deshaun wanted out. Then the sexual allegations dropped. You didn't have any draft equity. You didn't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick. Cap space was bad. J.J. Watt wanted out. And you had all these bad contracts. So that was 1 year. The next year, you had even more Deshaun Watson allegations. You still had Deshaun Watson unhappy and wanting out. It was almost impossible to trade him. You had a terrible cap situation. You still had Jack Easterby here. Don't forget that. Jack Easterby was here in both of those coaching searches. So a lot of coaches, a lot of GMs want no part of him. Those are 2 situations that you can't compare to any other situation. So now you're going to have 3 picks in the top, 35, we'll say, assuming that they just keep winning and ruining the dream for the first pick. You're going to have more cap space. I didn't even mention the Flores lawsuit in the last part. So it's completely different. So this notion that, Nick Caserio, and you can criticize him all you want. You can question whether Nick Caserio, you can do whatever you want. But the concern over whether Nick Caserio is the right guy or not, I can understand that. But to compare the last 3 years of the hiring process to any other organization, just give me similar situations. Because I think it's disingenuous to say that and not be able to give some sort of example. I saw Lock Confora did a column. Man, that was ghost written. I don't know who wrote that one, but Lock Confora put one out on the Washington Post. I mean, my God, whose agent was that? Was that Troy Vincent or something? That was ridiculous. You really even have, local media should know better than to say this type of stuff, but you're going to have national media, and it's really just kind of selectively dense. It's kind of simplistic. We've gotten to a point where there are a lot of guys, when they talk about coaching hires, they make it very simplistic, and they don't look at it any other way except one way. Just go look at what people were saying when Nick Sirianni got hired by the Eagles. He's been maybe the best coach in the NFL the last 2 years. Overachieved last year, best team in the league this year. A hell of a roster. Go back and look at what people were saying when he got hired. Oh, go back and look at what people were saying when McVay got hired. When Zach Taylor got hired in Cincinnati, there was like a joke going around. Oh, all you got to do is spend 10 minutes with Sean McVay, and all of a sudden you're a head coach. Well, those coaches have looked pretty good, haven't they? Same thing with Kevin O'Connell. You don't see people who are like criticizing those moves going back and saying, oops, our bad. They're just foaming at the mouth to come after the Texans. But I just think if you're going to criticize Nick Caserio, rightfully so. I mean, the last couple of years, I can say how rough it's been. I can say, but let's not simplify it and say, well, he shouldn't get to hire 3 coaches in 3 years. Unless you're going to compare it to another situation, which is damn near impossible. You just can't. Comments. Michael says, I'm here first. Keep looking and we'll find the right coach. Hopefully so. CS, let's go. John Douglas, the McNairs are incompetent. That's all. Carry on. Okay. Oh, why? I can't wait for Figgy to play the breaking news sounder. Me either. Should be 2 Mondays from now. But Nick didn't hire Coley and Lovie. Lovie was hired before Coley and the search started, before Nick was hired. So these guys are not his guys. See, I don't know who hired who, and I really don't care. You know, that's another thing that people keep bringing up, and I appreciate you for bringing it up. You know, well, Caserio didn't hire these head coaches. I don't care. I don't have a problem with Lovie Smith holding it down this year, given all of the obstacles that you had and how unappealing this job was. I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with David Culley the year before, although he was a disaster. No issue. The other thing is this, and this is something that I don't think too many people are talking about. You keep hearing the notion that, you know, well, you can't have 2 one-and-dones. You can't have back-to-back one-and-dones. Okay, well, here's the thing. If you keep Lovie Smith, then I actually think that makes the David Culley firing look even worse. Because David Culley had better results with less talent than Lovie Smith has. So I actually think it's the opposite. I think if you keep Lovie Smith, it looks worse. Furthermore, if you're worried about perception, then next year, let's say Lovie Smith wins 6 or 7 games. You fire him after that? I mean, that's a problem. And the other thing is Lovie Smith's a finished product. We know what he is. This isn't like some coach finding his way and he's going to figure stuff out. He's stuck in his ways. We knew that. That's the other thing. Like when Lovie Smith was hired, what were people saying? Oh, this is clearly a short-term solution. Now, all of a sudden, people are going to be selectively dense and say, oh, you know, they didn't give Lovie enough time. Come on. Texans don't deserve the benefit of the doubt from anyone. And I don't expect national media types to pay any attention to this organization. For what? If you gotta cover all 32 teams, what the hell are you going to watch this for? Most irrelevant franchise in the NFL right now. It's a harsh reality. I don't like it. I want to get to the top. I want to be relevant. I want to cover a squad. I want to do daily videos and do a daily show with a squad that people care about. They don't. So when national media types say stuff like, oh, he's hiring 3 coaches in 3 years and no other GM gets this opportunity and this guy wouldn't have gotten a chance had this happened, give me a break. Give me a break. David Culley was never going to be a head coach in the NFL. He got this opportunity. Got damn near $30 million to get that opportunity. Don't speak for David Culley. Go talk to David Culley. Ask him how he's living. He's living good. Living real good. Lovie Smith was lucky to get hired as a coordinator. He's had one of the worst defenses in the league this year. His defenses have been awful, really, for the majority of his time as a coach. Awful. Outside of 6 years, first 3 in Chicago, last 3. Had Ron Rivera and Rod Marinelli. So let's not act like Lovie Smith is like some sort of if he's one and done, it's like the worst thing in the world. Especially when Nathaniel Hackett's getting hired and stuff. And I appreciate Lovey for what he's done, but I just don't. This whole Nick can't hire 3 coaches in 3 years. Okay, give me a similar situation, and then maybe we can cut up on it. Such a trend. Do you think Caserio makes Tunsil the highest paid left tackle this offseason? He should. Not paying anyone else. Tunsil wants a short-term deal, I assume. So, yeah, I would very much do that, especially in this situation. Maybe there's a time when, we're talking about, well, you don't want to invest in the left tackle because you got this defensive end. He's going to need to get paid, and then this corner is going to need to get paid, and then the quarterback's going to get paid. We're not in that situation. There aren't too many guys on this roster that they're going to demand top dollar, and you're still going to have some money to spend. So, yeah, I think he should. I have a bad feeling Lovey is back, but the new OC in DC, first pick, we have to lose to the Bears. Could try. Look, if they bring back Lovey, that's fine, but that means they don't want to be great. That means they're just satisfied being mediocre if they do that. And I want an explanation why, too, from Caserio. I don't want any BS. When you built Apple, you had to make some tough decisions. And sometimes there were guys you brought back when they were doing this type of hardware and the systems and processes and balances. I don't want to hear that. Explain to me why. Needs to be some transparency around here, Nick. What's wrong with me? CS says, should we get Jonathan Gannon? I think if my theory on Jonathan Gannon, CS, and I appreciate that comment. If they interview him twice, doesn't that mean they want to hire him? I mean, wouldn't that and I like Jonathan Gannon. I think Jonathan Gannon's an intriguing guy. I think he's one of these new age defensive guys. But if they bring him back next year, doesn't that pretty much tell you they want him to be the guy? Because stuff went really weird last year with him. Kind of like McCown. Like they clearly wanted to hire McCown last year when they brought him back a second year. So I would think that would mean that they would want to bring back, then they would want him to be the guy. D'Amico Ryan's coming soon. One can only hope. Nick didn't want Lovey. I know that Lovey was an Easterby guy initially. I know that for a fact, I think, maybe. But he was here for a while. Is Morales, what's up, bro? Looking sharp, man. Happy holidays to you and yours. You think they prefer to win out to have Dust Dilemma with the pick, landing 3-5? I hope not, man. Because even then, they could trade back if they were that concerned, and you can get a lot with a quarterback here. So I would hope that they wouldn't be scared to have the number 1 pick, because I think the number 1 pick's the best thing to have. And I don't think it's really a dilemma. I think they would be able to figure stuff out pretty smoothly. Steven says Davis Mills should not be starting on the field ever again. He better be as a backup. Yeah, and I think he's developing into a backup. I actually think Davis has responded quite nicely to being benched. Look, we know he's not a franchise quarterback, but I think he's actually responded quite nicely, and there's a chance. Look, Davis Mills could end up starting some meaningful games for this ball club. Backups play a lot. Teddy Bridgewater's starting basically a win and get in game for the Miami Dolphins. Derek Carr just got benched. The Tennessee Titans are going to have Malik Willis playing with their playoff hopes on the line. I'm sure there's a lot of other examples. The Cowboys were without Dak Prescott for 5 or 6 weeks this season, and he held it down. Gardner Minshew started a game for the Eagles last game, where if he would have won, they would have won the NFC East. Backup quarterbacks, you need them quite often. Chad Henne relieved Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game a couple of years ago. So Davis Mills, I think he's responded nicely. I think he can be a pretty good backup. For sure. People should stop going to the Texans game. Steven, they already have, man. They already have. It's kind of sad. I've gotten a few tickets and I've handed them to folks that have wanted to go. A couple of season ticket holders I've transferred to. Guy wanted to take his son for the first time, and then someone wanted to take his wifey. So we've been getting that going, but people have already stopped going. Who would you be your choices for head coach if we go that route? Man, I want D'Amico, but I can be sold on Gannon. I can probably be sold on a lot of these guys. Eric Bieniemy for Texans job has been interviewed too for Texans. It didn't work out. Yeah, I'm not a Bieniemy guy. I like Kafka. I think he's doing a good job with the Giants. I'm just not as much of a Bieniemy guy as some. I think John Legend's a big Bieniemy guy. Stephanie, I'm ready to go from bad to decent to good to great. Lord, we are far off. Lovie needs to be fired, period. Happy holidays, everyone. Happy holidays to you, Stephanie. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully we can get some excitement going. Always appreciate you. She gives me a lot of ideas, by the way. I got to give Stephanie credit. She'll be giving me those Peyton Manning Omahas during the show with some stuff. So I'll give her credit. Happy holidays, Stephanie. If Lovie isn't fired, nobody going to games anymore. Already aren't, man. Already aren't. If we do get a quarterback, do you see Mills being the backup? Yes, I do. If they don't draft a quarterback, could Derek Carr be here? Maybe, but I think he's going to have a lot of options. I mean, there's a chance that Tennessee and Indianapolis, depending on what happens with them, although they could be in position to try to get one of these young guys. But, I mean, this is a good year for a veteran to have his choice to go to a new team. If Brady retires, you have Tampa Bay, you have Tennessee, you have Indianapolis. There's a lot of teams that could be looking for a veteran QB. Hell, maybe Pittsburgh decides, hey, we like Kenny Pickett, but Derek Carr might be a better option. There's a lot of possibilities for Derek Carr. He's going to have a lot of choices, and then the Raiders are going to do right by him. He's always been real loyal to that franchise. So I anticipate them just kind of releasing him and letting him go about his way. He might retire, which is what he said he would do if he couldn't play for the Raiders, but stuff changes. CS, should Texans get Anthony Richardson as QB? Just depends when. I'm a Bryce Young guy though. Number one, it was announced that Dobbs is starting for the Titans tonight. Yes, he is. So they're on their third quarterback. No Willis, which, God, he sucked. He was bad. Malik Willis. That might have been the worst quarterback play I think I've ever seen. And God knows we've seen a lot of bad quarterback play, to say the very, very least. But, man, that was bad. And they're treating this like a preseason game tonight. Jacksonville, fortunately, doesn't look like they will, although if, let's say, someone limps off the field or something like that, like one of their receivers, I mean, you really think they're going to have him go out there and gut it out, knowing that a week from then they got the Tennessee Titans? It's not going to happen. You think the Jags kind of regret losing that game to the Texans? Man, they would be playing for a chance to just rest. They would basically have a bye week if the Jags. And the other thing, Derek Stingley made the biggest play maybe in the division this year with that interception where he baited Lawrence in the end zone, and then Walker had the personal foul. If they had won that game, then they would be playing this week for basically a bye week. So shame on them. Bryce Young's the best quarterback in the draft. He can turn the Texans around 2023. Quentin Johnson, John Mechie, receiving core. I'm a Bryce Young guy too. I think he would excite a lot of people. Was Derek Stingley a disappointment? I don't think so. I don't think he's a good fit in Lovie Smith's system. I thought it was weird that when Stingley went down, they started running more man. DJ Bieniemy brought that up yesterday. Disappointment. He was clearly not as good as Sauce Gardner this year, so I guess that's disappointing. But I do think there are other variables, and I think we could be talking about a really good player. And the one thing I will say is he did get hurt, and that was the biggest concern about him. But how much of it was caution at the end of the year, where they just didn't want to, he had a little something wrong, and they didn't want to put him out there. Like if they were in the Jags or Titans situation, would Stingley be on IR? I don't think so. I don't think Pierce would be either. So Yeah, disappointing for sure. Whenever the pick behind you plays your position and he has one of the best rookie seasons that a cornerback's ever had, that's a little bit disappointing. But, it's like when RG3 was rookie of the year and Andrew Luck wasn't. There can be like kind of an overreaction. But yeah, I would say sure, a little bit of a disappointment, but I don't think it's the end of the world. The most disappointing rookie was Kenyon Green. I don't even think it's close. That might have been the most disappointing rookie season that maybe we've ever seen. What's to stop Caserio from screwing up this whole process up and bailing like Charlie Casserly, Jonathan Bean? I don't know. I don't think he would do that. Cool kid. Stingley isn't playing with his potential because of Lovie. Concur. Close game in the Alamo Bowl tonight, or will Texas handle them easily? I think it's going to be a close game. I could see it going either way. Watch the Texans win both these games and lose the chance to draft either Young or Stroud. Yes, that's the nightmare. Bryce Young jersey will be going on sale. Oh yeah, that'll be the thread, man. This is a long shot, but if Lamar is available, give him the bag. Okay, I love Lamar. I don't think they would give him the bag, but man, that would be fun. I love Lamar. I love everything that he kind of symbolizes, the innocence, all that. I also like that there's so many haters that are just so committed to Lamar Jackson not succeeding, and they just won't admit that you're wrong at this point. Like, no matter what happens, he's a successful quarterback. He's been one of the 15 best players in the league for a while. Won an MVP. Every time he loses, it's like people are just foaming at the mouth. See, he told you can't play like that. Can't play like that. Can't play style like that. Hate it. It's going to be the same thing with Bryce Young when he goes short. Moral of the story, anyone who tells you that Nick Caserio can't hire his third coach in 3 years, just challenge him to give you a similar situation. Or just don't listen to that moron because he's a moron. Have a good day, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Be back on the air Monday. Be Judge and Tailgater of the Year, courtesy of HEB. On Sunday in the blue gravel lot. Come by, say hi. If you're not using your tickets, get them to me. I'll get them in the rightful hands. And remember, no matter what happens, the final 2 games, the next 2 years, the next 20 years, we're all in this together. Have a good one.